Imagine the end of the world. The planet is uninhabitable. Deadly metal rains never stop. All humans are dead, except for you. You and 3 small children aged 8 to 11. You have survived in a bunker. There are enough supplies here to last you a few years, but when those supplies run out, you will die too. No one knows why the world became this way. Then, one day, you find a time machine. Apparently, you can send someone to the past using this machine. And when the past changes, it affects the present. Therefore, you have the power to change history. But you also have the option to forget about the world's current state and go to a past where the world still is habitable. What would you do in a situation like this? Would you leave the world in this state and go to the past with the children and live peaceful lives? Or would you use this power in your hands to try and change the past to prevent the world from becoming this way? This begs this question: do you have a right to change the past? This scenario is the plot of an indie game called Decade, which was released recently. Decade is an experimental narrative adventure game. In the game, you try to change the past to make the world habitable again, using the time machine you find. You are the last humans surviving in a bunker, 3 small children and you. With the time machine you found, you can send someone to the past to find out what happened to the world. But it has a caveat. The person you send will stay there for 10 years and can only return after 10 years. Meaning the person you sent to the past will return 10 years older. But for you, this time span is just a few seconds. When you put one of these children into the machine and send them to a past date, they return 10 years older just a few seconds later. And from their experiences, you learn what happened in the past. For example, this little girl named Ula, whom you sent at age 11, returns a few seconds later and at age 21. She says that in the time period she went to, people believed in an ideology called Euthanize, and according to this ideology, only the strong survive, and they kill the weak. You think the world's current state is because of this ideology, and you try to prevent this ideology from spreading by sending another children to a much earlier date to stop it before it even begins. If you do this and succeed, history can actually change. For example, there are no more deadly metal rains in the sky. However, humanity is still gone. I guess Euthanize wasn't the source of the problem, you think, and you sent another children to an even earlier date in the hope that they will fix things. There's an old saying, winners get to write history. Well, that may have been true before, but now I think it's a little different. You see, with developing technology, everyone is actually recording history right now. There's so much data on the internet, real or not, empirical evidence or fake news, emerging as a product of propaganda. The internet is filled not just with real or necessary information, but also with useless and false information. This information isn't just held by countries or corporations for their own interests. We, as individuals, also produce it. With social media, almost everyone is constantly sharing information from their own lives. Everyone is leaving a crumb in history. The internet has turned into a data junkyard, and we have no idea how this will affect future generations. Maybe, as humanity, we need to filter the data we create at some point. Or maybe we need to create context for this data.
Create context.
Create context.
These words might sound familiar. The Colonel in Metal Gear Solid 2 was talking about something similar. I am aware I'm starting to talk just like him, but actually, he has a point. I'm about to give spoilers for MGS2. If you don't want to hear them, you can skip to this minute. Colonel's monologue has aged like a fine wine. It talks about how information has grown beyond human control, how leaving it unfiltered for future generations could be dangerous, how the digital world drowns us in endless data until truth loses all meaning, and how people hide in echo chambers, hearing only what they want to hear, believing only what they want to believe, until reality itself becomes impossible to agree on. He says all this could stop social progression and even human evolution. And he has a solution: censorship. To filter all this junk data and save only the data he deems necessary, and even to create context for this data. In a way, he wants to be a digital historian, but he will be the one to decide what information gets censored. He's an AI, by the way. We can see what the Colonel talked about in 2001 in today's world. Everyone believes what they want in their own little community. The different cardinal truths neither clash nor mesh. No one is invalidated, but nobody is right. Objective reality doesn't matter now. There are people who believe the world is flat, that we never went to the moon, or that Adolf Hitler is still alive on the dark side of the moon. It seems there is no way for every person to objectively access the truth, the real information. Unless a scenario like the Human Instrumentality project in Neon Genesis Evangelion happens, where all human consciousness merges into one. But that too has its own set of problems, of course, like the disappearance of individuality. Anyway, think about 500 years from now, for example. Think about the data produced up to that time. Will people be able to draw meaningful conclusions from this data? Will they be able to learn what really happened in history with so much junk data? Maybe we really do need a filtering and context creating method like an AI. I don't know. I don't have a solution for this in my head. You might also be saying, why should we even think about this? Why should we care about future people? Let them learn history however they learn it. What's important for us is the present, you might be saying. But in fact, this is happening even right now. Events happening in the world are being told in different ways by different sources. Wars that have lasted for years, genocides that have lasted for years are distorted with propaganda and told to people who don't know the situation. And because of this, people can never really know what the truth is. While this is the case even now, we have no idea what level it will reach in the future. But I guess all of this doesn't really matter for now, because what's important isn't what really happens, but what happens in your reality, right? Have you ever heard of an ideology called Neuralianism? Neuralianism is a philosophy based on radical focus. This ideology advocates for eliminating everything that is worthless and for a person to purely dedicate themselves to one single thing instead of having too many interests. This view manifests itself in art, where artists who constantly produce numerous works are seen as lacking vision and character. Instead, the respected artists are those who focus on one or two works that fully reflect their entire being and ideas. How does this ideology sound? Did you like it? If you found it interesting and wanted to research it more, it's too bad, because it's not a real ideology. It's one of the fabricated ideologies for the game Decade that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Neuralianism, Vetiverism, Bergamism, and many more are some of the ideologies you can discover in this game. History is full of different beliefs arising from conflicts between people. Or just the opposite, it's full of conflicts arising from different beliefs. And whatever happened in the past, it's the reason the world is in this state. I'm still talking about the game, by the way. The reason you are trying to survive in a bunker on this uninhabitable planet is the decisions made by the people who lived before you. So, it's your natural right to change the past. The people before you made the wrong decisions, but you will make the right ones. The people before you didn't know the world would become this way, but you do. So, every individual you sacrifice to fix it is your right. So, get to work. Change the past. You sent every child to every time period. When they returned, they were adults. They had lives there. They encountered different ideologies there and adopted some of them. They returned changed, but you stayed the same. When I first played Decade, I didn't much care for their feelings or thoughts, because the salvation of all humanity was more important than the lives of a few individuals. Therefore, every one of them could be sacrificed for this cause. With the right moves, the right decisions, the right time period, I could set everything right. I started to see them not as people, but as resources. Ula is 51 years old. If I send her again, she'll come back as 61. And maybe she'll die on the next trip, so I'll send Mons instead and save Ula for later. I found myself saying things like that. It felt like I wasn't playing a narrative adventure game, but a strategy game, and I only had a few turns to win the game, so I was trying everything. I had convinced myself that all of today's problems could be fixed in this overpopulation era. I sent Mons there to contribute to one of the ideologies, but she didn't come back. She had changed the timeline, but she had also died. It did work. Now there were people outside. We could leave the bunker, but there was a problem. In this timeline, everyone over the age of 30 was euthanized. If you didn't accept it, you were killed. This was an unacceptable future. So, to fix this, I sent the other resources I had, Jack and Ula, to the same timeline. But they couldn't fix the situation, and they didn't come back either. Now there was no one left in the bunker but me. I was alone. There was nothing to be done. It was time for me to leave the bunker and start living in this future I had created myself, in my own created reality. How do we know what happened in the past? From historical records, of course, right? There were people who recorded history. In ancient times, they were called chroniclers, scribes, or historians. The ancient Egyptians carved records into stone and papyrus scrolls. The Greeks had historians who wrote about wars and politics. In the Middle Ages, monks kept chronicles of events year by year. These written accounts are some of our most direct sources, but they're not perfect. They reflect the biases and perspectives of whoever wrote them. Every empire, every ideology, every hero, all filtered through someone's words, someone's memory, someone's agenda. History isn't just facts, it's also about how we interpret them. Every generation re-examines the past with new questions and new evidence, so history is always being rewritten, not because the past changes, but because our understanding of it does. So how will we know the absolute truth? Well, we won't, not 100%. There's a concept in philosophy called dialectics, which suggests that truth often lies in the conflict of opposing narratives. If one source claims one thing and another claims something different, the truth is probably somewhere in between. For example, in 4800 BC, in a narrow pass in Greece, one of the most told battles in history took place. The 300 Spartans, commanded by King Leonidas of Sparta, held off the Persian army, which numbered in the millions, for 3 days. Thousands of Persian soldiers were killed. Arrows blotted out the sun. Shields were broken, spears shattered in hands. But the Spartans did not retreat. They fought with honor. The only reason they were defeated was because a Greek traitor named Ephialtes showed the Persians a secret mountain pass. At least that's how the Greek historian Herodotus describes this battle in his work Historia, written about 40 years after the war. But did it really happen this way? This event also appears in Persian records. In the Persepolis tablets, this battle doesn't appear as a disaster for the Persians, as Herodotus described, but merely as a minor resistance. For the Persians, this wasn't a tragedy, just an obstacle on the road. So, from the Persian perspective, Leonidas and the 300 Spartans weren't a heroic last stand. They were just a small problem. Two different sources, two different narratives. So which one is true? According to modern historians, neither of these two narratives is completely true. The Greeks weren't just 300 Spartans, for example. They had a few thousand more Greek soldiers with them, like the Thespians and Thebans. And the Persian army wasn't in the millions, as Herodotus said. It was probably around 100 to 150,000. And they won the battle without taking major losses. But this event that really happened was spread from mouth to mouth, from ear to ear, and became a legend. With each telling, the numbers were exaggerated. New generations romanticized this story, and now no one knows exactly what really happened. And it also doesn't really matter anymore because humanity has always done the same thing throughout history, taken real events, extracted stories from them, and then added those stories to their own realities, just like Herodotus did, just like we still do today. And Decade forces us to do just that, to write our own legend. When I started the game in that bunker, I thought I was an objective historian searching for the truth. But by the time I finished the game, as I sacrificed those lost children as resources, I realized I wasn't looking for the truth anymore. I was trying to create my own truth, my own reality. I was trying to create a livable fiction that I could step out into. Maybe this is what the Colonel in MGS2 was afraid of, and what Decade shows us so brutally. There is no such thing as objective reality. There is only the necessity to write your own fiction and then to live inside that fiction, just like we all do every day. Thank God at least we are not in a fiction written for us by someone else. Right?